Well, hello, friends. It's Misty here. I am so excited to be here with one of my absolute favorite people in the entire universe. Her name is Susan Rising. And Susan and I have been, honestly, some of the best of friends for 18 years. So I rarely do an introduction like this, but she is so special to me. I call her my ride or die. I don't have a lot of those in this world, but she has certainly been one of them. And so it's a real honor to have not only my coworker, but my friend here on the show to share with you today. And what I really am excited to announce is that we have some really big news. Recently, we not only hired Susan as our Director of Organizational Health, but we have also decided to purchase her business. So Samantel has now acquired Susan Rising Consulting and all of her intellectual property that comes along with that. So we have so much more value to add to our clients, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. We have change management strategies, we have workshops, we have one-on-one coaching. And for me personally, as somebody who's passionate about leadership development in addition to marketing, this is really a dream come true moment and something that I've wanted to do with Samantel for years. You know, I've asked my clients in the past, could you see us maybe doing some leadership development and organizational health stuff alongside what we do for you in marketing? And for a long time, the answer was, I don't know, Misty, that feels sort of adjacent to your business, right? How are we going to get there? But in a world of marketing where partnerships matter, and especially the employee experience matters so much, more and more of my clients are calling and saying things like, Misty, can you help me with this leadership issue? Can you help me with this team issue? And so now, instead of saying, sure, we've done that for clients before, I actually have an expert that I can bring to the table that talks about not only the things that Samantel has done, but what dozens of other brands that are in the industries we serve. And so I just had to give you a little bit of that background before we dive in today. And with that, I am so excited to introduce you to Susan Rising.
Wow. That was one heck of an introduction. Thank you, Misty, my friend. I appreciate that.
I have been thinking about this interview we've been trying to schedule it for how long, right?
I know. We did it. It's happening.
So many of the organizational health things that you solve, we have the challenges here at Samantel, which is another benefit of bringing you on board. So just so excited to be sitting here with you, but then to be thinking about the weeks and months and years ahead that we get to bring to life all of the special things we've talked about for so long. So we just announced recently to the public that we've made this acquisition. What are you most excited to bring into the Samantel fold, and kind of how do you see that unfolding? I know we're having lots of conversations about even how to put words to this very sort of squishy space that is sometimes described as organizational health and sometimes change management and sometimes culture, right? So where's your heart in it right now as we get ready to roll this out to the community?
Yeah, I guess it's just the opportunity to reach people in a way that we haven't been able to before. So a lot of times people don't even know what they need. I can remember being on many projects with you, Misty, where they'd be like, we need a campaign for this or we need a solution for that. And it would be like, you know what you really need is some really good change management.
Right.
Or you need to align your leadership team. And that's not what they're asking you for.
Sure.
But to be able to offer that, like to say in the kindest way,
right.
I think what you might really benefit from is this. If we start here,
right,
and your team is cohesive, I think you're going to have a lot better luck with everything that comes out of that.
And so change is so much a part of marketing, and it's one of the hardest things to keep up with as a CMO of any brand. And so I know we've been talking a lot about why does change management matter now more than any other thing, right?
Yeah, change management and really culture change. I think both of those things, culture change is one example of change management. Why does it matter so much? Well, it's crazy out there.
Well, we live in a world of extremes, and that's what we're talking about.
Extremes, yeah, and just trying to keep our heads level and keep marching forward when the swirl is all around us. I think having a clear idea of where we want to get is a good start. And sometimes even that part's not clear, right? So if you can sort of figure out where you want to go and then this is a lesson for my life, right? Like, don't get too precious about exactly what every step has to be, but lay out a plan and then course correct. What I find is that when people are doing culture change or any sort of change management, they forget that step about course correction.
Yeah.
Because I have literally never seen a change process that went exactly like it was supposed to.
Well, And that's why when we have hired you, when you were a consultant and we were the client, we love that you stayed with us, right? It wasn't like you handed us an action plan on a piece of paper and we put it on a shelf. It was like, no, I'm in it with you. Like, we're going to manage this no matter what happens, and we're going to be okay regardless.
So Patrick Lencioni is a business consultant, very smart, particularly the way he markets his ideas. The first book of his I remember hearing about was Death by Meeting, about how to, make your meetings more meaningful. And then
Which, by the way, not to interrupt, you've also taught us. We had to learn the basics of how to do strategic meetings and tactical meetings and Whirlwind. And so that's another thing.
I love that you remember all that and that you use it. And then he did the 5 dysfunctions of a team.
Sure.
All right. So then comes the advantage. And the 5 dysfunctions basically are part of the advantage, but he wraps it in a larger 4-discipline approach. Yeah. So in discipline 1, that's where you learn, how to make your team cohesive. And there's a lot of important stuff that goes on there, including the teamwork pyramid, which flips on its head the 5 dysfunctions of a team. He very wisely calls them the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team.
Yeah.
But they're the same things. And
Sure.
it all starts with that foundation of vulnerability-based trust.
Right. One other program that I'd like you to speak to is actually your independent philosophy, I think, of coaching. And it's this idea of leading with humanity. And, I have my own coaching program, which you have helped me inform. And I think you and I both have our own unique ways of getting to know someone and figuring out where they want to go and how to move them forward. So talk a little bit about your philosophy there and how you could see that applying at Simantel.
So leading with humanity is a 7-step process that I put together after many years of coaching and training. And to be honest, digesting a lot of other people's ideas and then kind of seeing what works, and came up with my own kind of approach. And I won't go through the whole thing, but step 1 is get your own humanity in order.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't know yourself, and if there are triggers that you haven't dealt with, you're never going to be able to be the best manager that you can be, because you're always going to be coming from a deficit.
Yes.
Right. So that is the foundation. And then it goes on to making sure that so I'm looking at it from like a manager, leader of a team situation. So you make sure that you have the right people, that they're in the right seats on the bus. If they're not, you help them get the skills to go to another team or to go somewhere else where they fit.
Sure.
It's a kind, gentle approach, but it doesn't mean that there aren't hard things that happen. There's a lot of hard things that happen through the process, but it's just being as thoughtful as you can with each step of the way. So everything is done for a reason, not in the heat of the moment.
Yep. What have you learned through the years? You've already shared a little bit about who you've decided to be as a human, but as you've coached others, especially leaders who deal with a lot of hard things, and it can be a very lonely job, like, what are some really important things to remember?
I guess just to remember that you're a human and that you're going to make mistakes. No one is perfect, and to just have grace for yourself.
Yes.
As much as you have for others. And I would say I think about this a lot, especially since I rejoined Simantel and I see the young people, and there's so much to learn here. And even I'm feeling it, as a new employee, going through your onboarding and all the things, So don't be afraid to ask questions. That's my bias. I love a question.
Right.
But I think a lot of times people think that asking a question shows weakness. And I see it as a strength.
Right.
Because it shows that you want to grow and learn, that you're not afraid to say, I don't know.